Speaking of my friend Chris Williamson, I don't know Chris. I know people who know Chris, but I like a show and everything like that. Chris Williamson stirred the pot a couple of weeks ago with the help of Tom Segura, the great comedian, who was on his show recently. They did a cinema episode. Tom and Chris live where I live in Austin, so they did just a nice, neat little podcast together. But they made a very bold claim. And I wanted to get into this because I think this is really, really funny and very, very interesting, actually. So they claimed, and I think Tom Segura started this conversation. It's a great YouTube clip out there. I would look this up. So the claim that they made was that fat activism, the movement about fat people being accepted, body positivity, etc., this was a train that people were on for years. And we lampooned it at the beginning, as all sane people should, because being fat is not good. It's not good to be unhealthy. It's not good to be big boned in that way, where you're kind of saying that you're just big boned and then you eat 2 quarts of ice cream later on in the night and just say that you're kind of an okay person. You're probably not okay, actually. But this is how insane our culture's gotten, right? There's something that, this has happened because of this. And so Tom Segura and Chris Williamson really leapt into this. And so basically they kind of said, this has been going on for a while, by the way. This has been going on for years, 5 and 6 years. You will never criticize a fat person for being fat. You will never say that obesity is genetic. We heard that one too. That was hilarious. There were conferences held on it. Serious medical disciplines were held on this. Again, it's a medical genetic disorder. It's insane. They treated it like a disease. It's not a disease. And in some cases it might be a disease, but you're probably just eating too much and exercising too little. Okay? So we can just say that. And eventually this cultivated into the body positivity movement, like the sex positivity movement, which is also awful and also terrible and also horrifically unhealthy to be teaching people. So body positivity was, you come as you are. If it feels good, do it. If you want to have, again, the 17th ice cream bar after the fried chicken, have the 17th ice cream bar. And if anyone criticizes you, then you are a bigot. Then you're fat phobic. That was another hilarious thing that people said. You hate, or you're afraid, actually, in terms of phobia, you're afraid of fat people. And in some cases maybe you should. I don't know. But I mean, that was it. But this was the argument. This is the insanity that we had indulged when it came to all of these things. So when you comb through, and this is the kind of thing that Tom and Chris were poking into, and I thought this was very, very timely. So when you comb through the people that are saying these things, this is the thing they pointed out, and this is what really caused a stir. When you comb through the people saying these things, saying love your body as it is, you can't change it. Fat people should be everyone should be fat, whatever. You'll notice a common trend between the most people that were the quote-unquote fat activists out there. They're either one or both of two things. They're either skinny or they're rich. And I promise you, you will never, 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 never hear a poor person ever discuss fat activism. Ever discuss fat activism. Because why? They're the ones who bear the cost of it. Uh-oh, not allowed to say that. And this goes into a broader point that I'm going to talk about a lot on the show. And I think, the fat activism thing is so ridiculous, so we can kind of poke fun at it here. The fat activism thing is so crazy because it points to a greater divide inside of the country that we're seeing. And there's been a lot of talks about the division. The woke movement kind of brought a lot of this out, and we had a lot of conversations around this. And a lot of people said that the defining issue in America is between people of different races, between white people and black people, or people of different minorities. It's between men and women. It's between Republicans and Democrats. It's between conservative and liberal people. And those things matter, and we should take those things into consideration. I'm not saying we shouldn't take those things into consideration at all, but the defining characteristic of society, I would argue societies generally, but especially in America. And no one likes to talk about this, by the way, because it's really hard to solve. The easy ones are the ones that we just named: men and women, race, gender, sexual orientation, political affiliations to a certain degree, because that's an ideas thing. But the one thing that no one wants to talk about, and I think really why a lot of people are getting mad, a lot of people that are in power right now, is they talk about the issue of class. This is why J.D. Vance is popular with a lot of people, because J.D. is the first person to talk about the white working class and the working class generally in America that have gotten so screwed by so many people over and over again. And so what you'll see, going back to the fat activism thing, is that it's always skinny people or rich people. You will never hear a poor person ever discuss fat activism because one, they have more important things to worry about. They got to keep the electric bill on. And then number two, they have to bear the cost of fat activism, of the stupid, nonsensical idea of fat activism. So basically, they have more expensive medical care because they basically they have less money to allocate towards medical care. They have less access to good groceries. They live in food deserts. They live in really, crime-ridden urban areas in a lot of ways, or poor white communities where I'm from, like in Appalachia. I'm not from that place, but I know a lot of people that live in that place. And so they are the ones that bear the costs of this, just demonic and satanic fat activism thing where people say that it's okay to be unhealthy as long as you love yourself or something like that's it's really dumb. Like that just shows how dumb it is. And so the reason why this is getting pushback from a lot of people, and it's a luxury belief in this way, and we'll talk about that in a second, but really and then Tom Segura and Chris really pulled this together by saying the advent of GLP-1s, so Ozempic, and I'm trying to think of the other one that's on TV all the time. I'm forgetting it, but Ozempic is the easy one to say. These miracle drugs that are causing people to drop weight like crazy. And these came around and took the world by storm over a couple of years ago. Scott Galloway, who's a really interesting person to talk to. I don't agree with everything Scott says, but I think Scott is incredibly smart and I think is really correct on this. He said over and over again, and I agree with him on this, that the biggest innovation of this time period, then we'll look back in 10 years, a lot of people think it's going to be AI, and it could very well be AI, but Scott Galloway thinks it's going to be GLP-1 drugs. It's going to be Ozempic. It's going to be, the people that say you can just take a pill or get a shot or go to a doctor and then you'll lose 20 pounds without having to exercise or without having to adjust your diet, even though that's kind of what Ozempic does. It suppresses your appetite, and it does things through chemicals and pharmaceutical companies. I think the company that owns, I think it's Novo Nordisk that might own Ozempic, and they have a monopoly over that market. Basically, they're the number one most valuable company in Europe right now, or the people that develop Ozempic, and they sell it to primarily the United States market because we're the fattest country in the world by far, and so they sell it to our market at a premium. And this is why health insurance is going to completely skyrocket if people mass import, and they kind of say all of these things. Like Callie Means, I think, was talking the other day that I believe for 6-year-olds, there's rolling legislation from the American Pediatric Association that is saying the recommended thing for children for 6-year-olds is going to be Ozempic if these people, again, these demonic, evil people have their way by saying all these things. And so, but when you saw, and this proves the point that, fat activism, a very bad idea, was completely nonsensical. It's completely nonsensical because when these drugs came around, fat activism went away like this. It completely went away. And why? Because people knew that it was right to be skinny. Everyone knew that it was the right thing to be in shape. Everyone knew, all the people that were peddling these narratives about, big is beautiful and Lizzo and Adele, when they lost all this weight, their followers got pissed at them because for the longest time they were saying, this is just me. I'm going to be, this massively obese, particularly in Lizzo's case, this massively obese person. I'm going to twerk in a thong at a Lakers game. I'm going to do all these things where I talk about how fat I am and you better love me, etc. And then when Lizzo lost that weight, their followers were mad at them. They were mad, and they should have been mad because they have been preaching the exact opposite message. And then when it was convenient for them, because they knew the right answer, the gatekeepers, these institutional people that said, these power brokers inside of our culture, that said that being fat was enviable, they took a pill, they took a shot, and they got skinny. Because they were fed a luxury belief. They were feeding their followers a luxury belief instead of the truth. And so luxury beliefs, this is my friend Rob Henderson, he's come up with this term, and it's one of the greatest. I think it really explains probably almost everything in this madness era that we've just lived through and hopefully are getting out of. So a luxury belief is defined as an idea or opinion that conveys status on the upper class while conflicting costs on the lower class. So like I mentioned earlier, there's no bigger division in America than that of class and status, all those things, which is exactly why the fat activism movement is a psyop. Like it's just not real, because it is something that, the people like Lizzo, who's worth millions and millions and gobs of money, millions of dollars, she can say that being fat is a healthy thing and it's a genetic disorder because she can just go pop a pill and take Ozempic and then skinny down and be, sexually appealing to people in the marketplace, et cetera, or like people in the dating marketplace, or whoever she wants to hit on, whoever she was maybe hitting on at that Lakers game, who knows? But this is exactly the problem when it comes to these sorts of things, because the people who buy into them, the people who do not have the money that Lizzo does, the people that don't have the money like Adele does, they get mad when they say that, hey, you said it was okay to eat 16 quarts of ice cream a night and go out to McDonald's, for breakfast every single morning and not work out, and that people will love me, and that guys will think I'm sexy, or that women will think I'm attractive, or whatever. And they're upset, and they should be. And this is exactly what kind of happened with Alex Cooper. So Alex Cooper a couple years ago caused quite a stir, because for the longest time she ran a sex podcast called Call Her Daddy. She's kind of I think moved it around. I guess she talks more about like feminism stuff and sexual politics now. I haven't listened to it in a while. The original Call Her Daddy I thought was actually very funny. This is before I was a Christian, by the way, so disclaimer. When she was doing it with Sophia Franklin. Now both of them are like awful, and they've told young women awful advice for a very, very long time. And so what Alex Cooper said, basically, she embodied the traditional feminist line where she says, you can have sex like a man, you can, go out and experiment, give your man a Gluck 9000, et cetera. And then she kind of just says, like, sleep around, do whatever. And then she got married. And then people got really mad at Alex Cooper for getting married. And they should have gotten very mad. It got so bad that she had to turn off her comments. I think her comments still might be off on her Instagram. That's how bad it was. But she announced that she was getting married to this very successful Hollywood producer. I think is what he is. He's very, very high up in the status hierarchy over in Hollywood. They launched her media company together. Alex Earl's show, I think, is still on there, although that might not be true anyway. But she had Alex Earl as a talent. She had, obviously, Alex Cooper was a huge brand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, this was a very, very big deal because, again, it's a luxury belief. It's a bad idea that they say, you know what, you all can have that, but I'm going to get married to some sexy Hollywood producer and I'm going to be okay. That's what she said. But it's just not true. It's not true. And I think that it's very, very destructive for a lot of people that really need better advice. And they need better advice around a lot of things. Because, like I said, with the self-help people, they're looking for guidance. There's a reason why people are on the internet talking about these things and doing these things, is because there are so many of just these bad ideas getting so basically sent up to, or beamed down rather to the masses of people who actually are looking for some help and looking for some advice. And then they have, stupid people like, Lizzo and Alex Cooper telling them that, being fat is healthy and that having sex like a man when you're a woman is going to somehow help you like self-actualize, which is crazy and absurd, but it's what happens.